Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A pleasure to have you here with us in London for the film festival. Maybe you could just begin with a brief introduction to this very powerful, moving film, The Son. What can audiences expect when they watch it?
And The Son is the story of a father and a mother trying to help their son, Nicholas, who is 17 years old, who is going through a difficult time. And they are trying their best, and somehow, they don't know how to do that. They are in this position when you do not know what to do anymore, even though you want, you want to do everything you can.
And tell us a bit about the genesis of the project, because of course it was originally a play as you first wrote it, and also comes after and somehow is linked to The Father, your wildly successful film, The Father.
Yeah, The Son is also the adaptation of one of my plays called The Son, and this is a play that I wrote a few years ago, and I really knew that I wanted to shoot that story, to tell that story, even before I did The Father. It was like a rendezvous, I would say. I really needed to tell that story because it comes probably from a personal place, but also because it's not enough to tell your own story in a film. You need. It's something more. It was more about sharing emotions. And when I did the play, I was very surprised to see the response of the audience. People were waiting for us after every performance. They were not to say congratulations, but just to share their own story, to tell their own story. And it was a way to say, oh, I know what you're talking about, because my daughter or my uncle or my father. And I really realized that so many people are connected to this issue, which is mental health issue, and I really wanted to somehow to open a conversation about it, because what I feel is that there is so much shame, so much guilt, so much ignorance around these issues that I really wanted to speak about it.
And of course, dealing with such a sensitive subject matter, your cast were going to be incredibly crucial. So where did you begin? Did you have in mind Hugh Jackman and Laura Dern? And then, of course, you brought in this newcomer in Zen. So how did you kind of piece this together?
No, usually when I write a play or a film, I have faces in mind. But for The Son, strangely, it was like I didn't know who would be, in the cast. Apart maybe from Anthony Hopkins. He's the only one that I had in mind. It's a small part in this film, but I really wanted him to do it. Apart from that, I was just starting the process of thinking, dreaming, because everything starts with a dream, when it comes to movies. And I received a letter from Hugh Jackman. He's the one who approached me, actually. He knew that I was working on the adaptation of The Son. He knew the play, and he said, if you're already in conversation with someone, please forget the letter. But if you're not, I would love to have 10 minutes with you to let you know why I should be the one to do this part. And I was really surprised and moved by his approach, for what it takes in terms of humility, honesty, courage. And of course, we met on Zoom. And it was just a general meeting, I was not planning to make any decision. It was just at the beginning of my process. But after 8 minutes, I think I stopped the conversation and I said, it's for you. It's not because of something he said, but more because of what I felt about who he is as a human being. I was really impressed by his depth, his and his secret connection to this story, and I realized that he would be like an opportunity for both of us to explore these emotions without pretending, without faking, without imitating, but just to dare being truthful. With no protection, and to embrace this story in the most truthful way, I think.
And then when he came to, deliver this performance, because I think what he captures so well is this kind of, even his physicality, kind of this, sort of pinnacle of masculinity. And then, of course, all that repression and all that emotion and those insecurities just kind of simmering underneath. And lots of the scenes with Zen, but also with Laura Dern. You can see that vulnerability kind of rise to the surface. So it was a really amazing performance.
Yeah, what I made as a decision is not to rehearse at all before we shot, because I wanted this fragility to overwhelm him and them without being too aware, of what we were doing. So the process was more to discover on set every day in the now, what we were talking about, what we were trying to explore, without talking too much, without having a plan, and for them to be not in control, I would say, of the situation. It's about someone who is trying to fix situations, who thinks that he can control everything, and he's losing the control. So I didn't want him as an actor to be in control, but to leave a room for emotions, true emotions, something you are not aware, something you cannot fake just to overwhelm you. I thought it would the most impactful way to portray this man who is trying to, I would say, to save his son,
And maybe you can just say a few words about the rest of the cast. Laura Dern just continually seems to take role after role, and so well. Vanessa Kirby, of course, seeing in more and more films. And then how did you land on this newcomer of Zen? And was that kind of a risk? Because it's also a pivotal role in the film, and perhaps a lot to put on the shoulders of a young actor.
Yeah, it was. I was looking for someone. I knew that it was someone I didn't know yet, because he was like a 17-year-old actor. So I met many actors on Zoom. It was such an excitement, to discover new faces and to know that somewhere there was someone that was waiting for this film to be done. And I saw many beautiful actors, but when I saw Zen's tape, I really knew that it was the one. I had that strong instinct. Of course, I needed to have like few meetings to see how he would react to directions and things like that. But I knew he was the one, because he had this. I don't know exactly why. Sometimes you don't have to understand or to explain, but I felt strongly that he had the strength to go there and to be that fragile at the same time. And Laura Dern, it's another story, because I knew her very well, as a viewer, and I think she's so great. And what is exceptional about her, within many things, is that she's so, her religion, I would say, is to protect the relationship with the director. She comes from that place. And so as a director, it's really, really, like an inspiration to be able to have someone who is always trying to serve your vision in the most generous way. But I would say that everyone involved was involved almost for personal reason. They knew why they wanted to tell that story. And so she brought something about her as a mother, as a very sensitive person, and that was so helpful for the film. And Vanessa Kirby, really, I think she's one of the greatest, and I wanted to work with her. Very much. It could have been on The Sun or on anything else. And we come from theater, both of us, so we spoke a bit the same language, I would say. And she's so intense and so creative. It's really, really special to work with her.
And in terms of the actual shoot of the film, were there any real challenges along the way? What were the sort of scenes that you found maybe most difficult to capture? And what were some of the highlights, the moments you really realised you'd nailed it?
I think there was not a specific scene. The thing is that we shot the film in the middle of COVID, and it was part of the journey. So we had all masked. It was kind of difficult to create like an intimate atmosphere. But we were, I think, very aware that we were so lucky to be able, despite of everything, to go on telling the story we wanted to tell. So we were like, I think, grateful about being in a room together. It was like very simple. We were in a studio, a small group of people. We were all aware of why we wanted it to be told. And so to try to be truthful and sincere about that story. And it was very intense, all of us, because, some scenes are very emotionally difficult. So, we were like a family, I would say. Yeah.
And in terms of the takeaways from the film, there is so much tension created even in these kind of, let's say, small scenes, family drama, but you can feel throughout the film something is, bubbling, simmering, if you like. But is there something important for audiences to go on that journey? And maybe it's some kind of wake-up call, if you could easily be one of these people and sleepwalk into the situation, and you need to know that sometimes you need to seek out outside help.
Yeah, and also it's about someone who is blind, The father wants so much to help his son. He's a loving father, he's a caring father, he's trying his best, and somehow he's blind, and it's about how guilt makes us blind, and the guilt comes from the assumption that we need to understand everything. And what is the mystery of mental health is that there is no simple explanation. Of course, when you're in pain, you want to have someone or something to blame for, because what seems to be so easy for the others is so difficult for you, so it's so unfair. But sometimes there is no simple explanation. Of course, there are layers, psychological, but also chemical and biological. It's so complex. And I think that it's important to remember that there is no explanation. So in a way, there is no responsibility. So there is no guilt that should be involved. And also, it would mean nothing, to blame someone for having like a heart issue. And I think that's the same for mental health. It makes no sense to blame someone for being in pain. And we all know people that on the paper, they have everything in their life to be happy, and still they are struggling. And this is reality. And to accept that there is no explanation, I think and so no reason to blame anyone for anything, is the beginning of the conversation. And this is what I wanted to tell in that story, to open that conversation. Because I think that mental health issue, it comes very often in the conversation, but it's always like superficial conversation. And still I feel like we are not comfortable talking about it, as we are not comfortable watching movies about it. And I think that's something that should change. There are so many people in pain, and it's like another pandemic, in a way. And a lot of people are in pain without knowing it's what it is about, what are the stakes. And so I think the more we can speak about it, the more we can prevent tragedies to happen. Because I profoundly believe this is the whole thing about that film, that tragedy is preventable. And also how do you say that?
Suicide.
Suicide, sorry. Yeah, I think that suicide is preventable. But it takes a lot of time, as parents especially, to face this issue, to question and to have the right questions, because it's very painful. But sometimes you don't have that time, This is the time that is, this is when tragedy happens. So I think that the more we talk about it, the better it is.
And it definitely hits on quite a few key themes that maybe we haven't seen explored enough on screen. The nature of intergenerational sort of cycles of trauma, how that passes down from one to another. Perhaps sometimes this divide that we have to the younger generation, we don't really understand the very specific challenges they face. And also this idea, that love might not always be enough, as you mentioned, that, there is something that you do need professional help for.
Yes, I think that it's a strange assumption that love is not enough, because we always feel like love is everything, and it's true. And still, sometimes it's not enough, meaning that, he's a loving father again, and that's why I wanted Hugh Jackman in this part, because you can, when you see Hugh Jackman on screen, you can almost see his soul, He's such a good person. You can feel that. And the character, he wants the best for his son. He wants to do everything to fix the situation and to help him. But he doesn't have the keys, to open the right doors. And at some point, love is not enough. And it's part of the journey of being a parent, to be in a position where you do not know what to do anymore. And that's okay, in a way, to feel impotent, powerless. And I think we have to accept that. And this is the story of a man who is not capable to accept his own powerlessness. For some reason, we discover in the film that he wants to be a perfect father, or probably the father he never had, or a better father than the one he had. So he, in a way, is struggling with his own past, And he's the son actually of the story. It's called The Son, but when we go through that story, we understand that this father, Hugh Jackman, is also a son, and a son in pain, and it's about, as you said, the circle of pain intergenerations, and how to break that circle, and he's not able to break that circle, and so it's also something I wanted to explore in the film.
And just the final point about the idea of it focusing on sort of the masculine angle, because maybe we've seen films about kind of looking at mental health and motherhood, but maybe we haven't looked that much at fatherhood and this idea of masculinity and perhaps kind of the almost toxic masculinity of not being able to cope with your own emotions or tackle them can be what leads to tragedy.
Yeah, the toxic masculinity is definitely one of the themes of that film, but also, this father is like dealing with so many things at the same time, his work, but also his hope. He's about to start a new career, and his family, but also his new family. I mean, somehow he's a father, but he looks like a female character, I would say, but probably because the way fathers are now look more and more like, mothers, trying to be more connected with their emotions and to open conversations and to be more sensitive and to allow yourself to be more vulnerable, I would say. And that's the character.
And just very quickly, can you tell us what you might work on next, or you're still thinking about it?
I don't know. I really don't know. I would love to tell you, but I don't know.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
sharing
much.
that with us.
Thank
I
you.
really enjoy presenting your film here at London Film Festival.